甘いものって英語でなんて言うの？朝簡単でしょ。英語で言うと sweet。ちょっと待って。実は意外と複雑です。多くの日本人の方が甘いものが好きと英語で言いたいときに I like sweets と言います。イギリス人と話すときは問題ないんですけど、アメリカ人と話すときはちょっと変です。
Alright, Austin, do you like sweets?
Why are you saying it like that?
それってなぜでしょうか？甘いものはアメリカ英語で何と言うんでしょうか？実は場面で変わります。皆さんこんにちは、アーサーです。今回のレッスンでは1、日本語の甘いものがアメリカ英語に直訳しづらい理由。2、甘いものの英語の言い方。3、和菓子の英語の言い方を学びましょう。よろしくお願いします。So, why is it difficult to translate the Japanese word 甘いもの into English when you speak with Americans? It's because people are trying to translate 甘いもの into English. 朝なんて言ってんの? Here's the thing. In traditional English education in Japan, you study for tests and you have to get the correct answer, and a lot of it is translating Japanese into English or English into Japanese. But real language, real communication isn't about translating Japanese words into English words. 英語の本来の目的は頭の中のイメージ、気持ち、情報、いわばメッセージを相手に伝えることです。More than the words themselves, the images that the words communicate are important. And the thing is, there is no word for the image of 甘いもの in American English. You see, words are more than anything labels for a category of something. The purpose of words is to help us categorize and organize the world we experience in our everyday lives. For example, if something has more than 3 legs and there's a board on top of it and you put things on it or you eat at it, it's called a table. But if you use that same object for studying or writing something, people call it a desk. It's a different category, a different word. And every culture in the world is different. Every culture decides to focus on certain things that are important to that culture. And so the way that people categorize things in Japanese will be different from English. And that's why there are so many words that you have in Japanese that can't really be translated into English well, or that are the same word in English, even if there's multiple words in Japanese. Like, for example, in Japanese, you have the words 冷たい and 寒い. And how do you say those words in English? Well, they're both cold. Because in Japanese, they have decided to differentiate, to make different categories for cold things and for the feeling of you being cold. But in English, there's no distinction. There's no reason to make a different category for that. And that's the problem we have with the word 甘いもの. In Japanese, you have the word 甘いもの for a specific category of things. But in American English, that category doesn't quite exist. Now, in British English, you have the word sweets, which is very similar to 甘いもの. It covers things like チョコレート, 飴, and all those different kinds of sweet things. And of course, Americans understand British English, well, at least most of the time. And so if you say sweet to an American person, they'll understand you, but it feels a little bit strange. It feels kind of old-fashioned. It feels kind of katakurushi a little bit. Oh, hello there, my young chap. Would you like a sweet? A sweet? What are you talking about, man? We say... Actually, there are cases even in America of when people want to give that kind of old-fashioned vibe, that atmosphere to their brand or their name, they'll add in the old sweets shop or something. They'll use the word sweets to get that older atmosphere, that older feeling back in their image. So if in Japanese you have the category 甘いもの, but in American English that category doesn't really exist, well then, what do you say in that case? What do you say in American English for 甘いもの? The closest thing you can say is candy. But be careful, it's not exactly the same as 甘いもの. Candy originally meant crystallized or hardened or glazed. And so people tend to use it when sugar is the base of something. And a lot of times in Japanese, you would call those things 飴, I think. Is that correct? イントネーションが違ったら教えてね。 And so those little hard sugar things are called candies. And you can also candy things in English, which means put a layer of sugar, of cooked melted sugar around it. And so 大学芋 in English would be candied yams. なんで大学芋っていう名前になったんだろうね。You can also have candied walnuts or candied apples. Anything that's covered in melted sugar can be called candied that thing. But it can also be used to mean chocobar. In that case, a lot of Americans will say candy bar, not necessarily chocolate bar, but candy bar.
This, it's candy. Yeah, the
Just
candy bar.
Candy bar.
To get the image, let's look up candy in Google Images and see the kind of results that we find. Well, you can see you can have a lot of those hard candies, a lot of sugar, very high sugar things. The main ingredient is going to be sugar, but that's a little bit different from other things in Japanese that you would call amai mono, right? 甘いパンの場合はどう言ったらいいんでしょう? Do you say sweet bread? Candy bread? Well, not quite. In the past, when I've talked with Japanese people, sometimes when we talk about the food that we like, they say, I like bread or I want to eat bread. And I know what they mean is 甘いパンが食べたい, 甘いパンが好き, but the image is completely different, especially in American English. Hey, Natsumi, what do you want to eat?
Oh, I want bread.
Great, well, I have some bread for you.
Not this.
What? When you say, I like bread or I want to eat bread, the image is just regular bread like shokupan or furanzupan without much sugar on it. So then what should you say when you want to say amai pan? You should say pastry. Hey, Natsumi, what do you want to eat?
I want a pastry.
Well, actually, I got one right here.
Where did you get it?
From my pocket.
That's so gross.
I'll eat it then. And this is interesting, right? So you don't have a category of amai mono in English, but you have a category of amai pan. You call it pastry. Anything that has a lot of sugar or is very sweet that you eat for dessert or at the end of a meal or something like that, you call it pastry. It comes from the word pâtissier, I think. In Japanese you have pâtissier, the people who make pastries. At least that's what I think. So instead of saying, I like bread, you can say, I like pastries. Okay, so now what about wagashi? How do you say that in American English?
ちなみにさ、和菓子って英語でなんて言うの?
Oh, you just say Japanese sweets.
でもさっきスイーツって言わないって言ったじゃん。
Yeah, but...
どっちなのよ?
Now, yes, in the case of wagashi, you would say Japanese sweets. Now, why is that if there's no category for sweets in American English? Wagashi have an image, have an atmosphere of being kind of traditional, old-fashioned. Of course, there are modern wagashi happening, but the image that a lot of people have of a wagashi is kind of an older style, maybe ちょっと昔ながらな雰囲気がするんですよね. In that kind of an image. And remember, the word sweets is kind of old-fashioned. It feels a little bit katakurushi, a little bit. And so in that case, it kind of matches the atmosphere. And that's why you can say Japanese sweets for wagashi. Sometimes you'll hear people say Japanese confection. でもそれはかなり堅苦しくて Japanese sweets で十分です。Now here's the most important part of this lesson. やっぱりこういう生の英語、生きた英語に出会うためにネイティブと実際に話す必要があります。なかなかテキストで学べない内容ですよね。でもそのためにはやっぱり外国人と実際に話さないといけません。でもほとんどの英語を勉強している方がいきなり外国人と対面するってなると頭が真っ白になって言葉が出てこなくて全く話せなくなります。具体的にどうしたら英語を学ぶだけではなく生の世界で実際に話せるようになるんでしょうか。その問題を解決したくて IU-Connect を作りました。IU-Connect を通してより多くの日本人の方が英語を学ぶだけではなく生の世界で外国人と実際に話せるようになって豊かな日常を送っていただきたいと思っています。詳しくは You can click up here or you can click the link below this video to learn more about what we're doing.As always, enjoy your English adventures. 一緒に世界とつながりましょう. See you next time. Here you go.
Not that.
What? Did you get flour on my hair? Great, well, here's some bread.
No, that!
What? Ow.
We could.
Okay. Here's some bread for you.